I'm planning a session that is mainly a little bit of introduction, which I'll do in a moment, quite a lot of breathing, and relaxation at the end, and a very gentle practice in between that is going to be safe for everyone, but still I can't look after you, so please look after yourself. And if anything doesn't feel right, or you have any health conditions you're managing, then please do that. And if you've got any doubts at all, just avoid that practice that you've got any feeling about, because you won't enjoy it if you have that feeling of reservation anyway. So just a little bit about Zoom. Some of you will be really familiar with it, and some of you less familiar. So you've pretty much all got a box, and you have a choice in that black box. If you were to hover your mouse over near the top, you can choose gallery view, where you see lots of little pictures of everybody, or you can choose speaker view. And if you choose speaker view, you'll just get me, which might be helpful for the teaching session. And again, that'll be really helpful. And if you're really confident with Zoom, you can pin me to your speaker view so that it doesn't deviate. But nobody else should be speaking during the class, so it should just stay on me automatically. So that's the top right. Bottom left, if you hover your mouse there, that's where you'll see that your audio is already muted. I've muted everyone's audio, and your video is there, so you could mute your video and just listen to the audio when we're lying on the mat doing some stuff, and you don't need to see me, or just leave the video on. That's going to be fine. I'm separately recording this session on a different device so that it can go up on YouTube, but there'll be nothing in that YouTube that is anything other than me, so there will be an opportunity to ask some questions at the end, and you can do that via the text, the chat feature, which is again on the little bar at the bottom. I won't be looking at that during the actual session, so you could type questions there at the end, and you could also unmute and or raise your hand. There's a little raise your hand option, and we'll take some questions there. The session is 10 to 11:30, but I'm gonna stick around for another half an hour, so don't feel that you have to stay for that. But if some of you got questions, and there may be some of you who are teachers who are either dabbling in Zoom and haven't yet moved your classes online, who want to talk about that, I'm really happy to share my experience so far. So we'll begin. I'm going to have to creep forward every now and then just to check that the latest people to join are muted. Yeah, that's all good. So the title for this session is Yoga for Respiratory Resilience and Immune Support. And obviously it's very clearly directed at the current pandemic, and the fact that we're delivering online is to mitigate against all the social distancing and social isolation that people are feeling, particularly those who live on their own. And I've been delivering sessions like this, lots of them over the last week or so online, and I've been running some training online as well. So what we're going to do is plug into, and I'm going to share a little bit of information with you about how yoga practice can support respiratory resilience and immune support. And I'm going to then take you through some of the practices that I believe are helpful. I wanted to start though by just giving myself and everybody else in this session permission to have a little bit of what Patanjali describes as satya of truth about exactly how we're feeling, because the British way, the stiff upper lip, the denial is to just sort of plough on. But I know in myself there's an underlying sense of unease. There's a slightly sickened feeling that comes and goes in the stomach, where you've got your through the gut, you've got the enteric nervous system that is such an emotional storehouse of negative and positive emotions. And I think we really need to be truthful about how we're feeling and acknowledge those feelings, even though they may be negative about how we're being affected by everything that's going on, the extraordinary things we're being asked to do in terms of social distancing, the lack of our usual social connection, and the palpable sense of fear that is out there, just even walking around the supermarket in everybody's eyes. And there's never been a time when people have needed yoga more, or needed the self-care that yoga can bring than now. So one of my objectives, and I'm sure many of you are doing this already, is to not forget to nourish yourself, to do your own self-care, your own yoga practice, so that in these difficult times you can still remain that still point, that very steady presence, maybe helping others around you who are feeling more fearful and more unsteady than yourself. So please do that. And for that reason, I also got involved in with Heather Mason, who I work with on the Yoga and Healthcare Alliance NHS commissioned yoga protocol. Heather had this brilliant idea of setting up Health Flicks, and just borrowing the the Netflix name and changing it a little bit. And you know, we've all volunteered, and Heather has got an incredible range of brilliant speakers. So if you've not seen that already, have a look at healthflix.online. I'll put this on the chat towards the end of the session, and you can sign up for live classes with really extraordinary, brilliant teachers. And you've already missed quite a few actually, including one by Professor Satvir Khalsa, who's Assistant Professor of Medicine at Harvard, and that's a talk that in half an hour I think every single British School of Yoga teacher should watch, to get a really clear understanding of where we are with the current evidence base for yoga. So all those talks are on the YouTube channel. If you miss it live, you haven't missed it, because you can catch up there. So more on that later. Last thing I'm going to say, and then we'll start with our practice, is about that scientific base. So we'll be doing some breathing where we're going to slow and deepen the breath, and it's a version of the 3-part breath, so it's going to be familiar to a lot of you. And then we're going to deliberately extend the length of the exhale. And we're doing this because there is now a very strong body of evidence to show that breath work and mindful breathing and deep, slower breathing, so bringing the breathing rate per minute down from sort of 10 to 15 in the average person to 3 to 5 in the yoga practitioner, that has a profound effect on the autonomic system. So in decades gone by, when anatomy and physiology was being developed as a discipline, it was thought that the autonomic nervous system, which you'll remember is the sympathetic, that is fight or flight, that is revs you up, and everybody is currently in a nationwide and worldwide, we're in a heightened state of sympathetic arousal because of the fear that we're feeling about the coronavirus. And the parasympathetic is the system that is meant to kick in when the danger has passed and bring you back to balance. And during that period of over sympathetic arousal, there's a suppression of the immune system. There are lots of chemical messengers going around your bloodstream, some stress hormones that are really harmful. Some of you, like me, may be finding it much more difficult to have a long, peaceful night's sleep at the moment, and these are all indications of what is going on. So the long exhale, the slower breathing, really promotes parasympathetic response, relaxation response, helps to bring down some of those stress hormones in the bloodstream, and it's taking a strain off the immune system that doesn't need to be there. We all need our immune systems to be as strong as possible at the moment to both fight infection off, not get ill, but also if we are infected, whether it's COVID-19 or something else, that we have the best chance of recovering. So they're the main thing. The other thing that the slow breathing and the long exhale does is promote really good heart rate variability. So I'm not going to go into that today, but it's another measure that is used a lot in hospitals to explore the way in which the heart slightly speeds up when you breathe in and slightly slows down when you breathe out. So of course, if you do a longer exhale, you get a slightly exaggerated sort of calming down, slowing down of the heartbeat. So we think of our heartbeat as having a very steady rhythm, but it's actually within the two beats of the heart, within the beats of the heart and the breath, there's an interrelationship there where inhale speeds it up and exhale slows it down. And you could play with that in your own practice and just take a pulse, do some slow breathing, and you will feel in your own body the speeding up on the inhale, the slowing down on the exhale. When you have poor heart rate variability, it's an indicator of being more at risk of chronic illness. So it's one of the parameters that doctors use to measure resilience in terms of your system. So enough on that. We'll move on now to the class. So if you are sitting on the floor, just make sure you're really comfortable. Support your hips. I'm on a block and quite a thick blanket, and we just want to make sure that the spine is completely neutral and upright, and that you haven't lost your lumbar curve. So it's when the lumbar curve is gone and the top of the pelvis is pointing backwards that we have the spine out of neutral, and there are uneven forces on the intervertebral discs, and that is just not a good place to breathe or really do anything. If you're in a chair, the tendency in some chair sitting is to slump back, so you could either push your hips back to the back of the chair for support there, or bring the hips forward and use a little bit more of your postural muscles to support the spine with its natural curves, feeling the long axis of the spine. And then either closing your eyes, or if you prefer to keep the eyes open, just take a soft gaze forward and down, and have a sense of what you feel in your body, just starting with posture and feeling that the head is exactly over the heart is over the pelvis, everything is in this lovely stack. And if the head is forward, just drawing the chin in, lifting the back of the head, lengthening the back of the neck, and finding that length. And on your next exhale, releasing the shoulders, relaxing the shoulders down, and then taking a few moments to notice exactly how you feel right now and how you've been feeling during this crisis. So as I said a few minutes ago, the satya, the truthfulness we want here is to be really honest, and it's okay to feel unsteady, slightly out of center, to feel worried for loved ones and for everybody else. We need to acknowledge those feelings and acknowledge exactly how we're feeling in our physical body and in our emotions and our mind, which are sometimes difficult to untangle, but those feelings of dread and unsteadiness in the emotional realm, and in the mental realm, your ability to maintain a steady mind, maintain clear thinking, and have thoughts arising and passing away in a manageable, steady flow, and to not feel overwhelmed by thoughts, by the activity of the mind at this time when there are so many things grabbing our attention and so many stresses and worries that we could attach onto. So we take all those into account, we bring them into our current awareness, and then we're just going to gently park those to one side and give ourselves a very clear permission to self-care, to give ourselves this time to be with our breath, to be with our body, to self-care and nurture, so that we can be stronger, more resilient, more able to cope and care for those around us when we're not doing our yoga practice. And then begin to tune into your breath and allow your breath to gradually become a little bit deeper, a little bit slower, without really trying to exert a lot of control over it. And there's a lot of the usual blocked noses around at the moment, so we don't want any strain on the breath. If you can't breathe in and out through the nose, then of course use the mouth. But the nose breathing is preferable, and I've done a little talk about that, but the very condensed sentence on that is that when you inhale through the nose, the air is not only warmed and filtered, but it's also a first line of defense for trapping bacteria and viruses before they can get into the airway and down into the lungs. So definitely a good thing to do at this point. And then we've got in this session quite a lot of people who are yoga teachers who will be very adept at working with their breath, and we have others who are less experienced. So I'm going to do two things. I'm actually going to start with the slightly more subtle version, and then I'm going to suggest a hand movement which will help those who are not feeling what I'm going to suggest right now. So this certainly will work better if you can withdraw the sense of sight and close the eyes, but have the eyes downcast if necessary. And I'd like you to take your attention to the lower third of the lungs. And we're just going to breathe in and out there, and we're going to keep quite a soft abdomen, not absolutely no tone whatsoever, but just enough tone to maintain good seated posture, but enough softness that our diaphragm, our main breathing muscle, which is this big dome shape separating the lungs from the abdomen below, that muscle can work effectively, that it isn't being hampered by unnecessary tension in the abdomen. And if you are feeling a lot of fear, a lot of tension in this area, maybe your digestion is being a little bit disrupted by the stress of what we're experiencing at the moment, then breathing down into a soft abdomen and keeping this area mindfully soft will help you, I hope. So as we focus our breath down towards the base of the lungs and allow the abdomen to move, you'll also be aware that the lower ribs, as you breathe in, are just slightly expanding outwards. They're not lifting, they're just moving outwards. And this is the movement of the diaphragm moving the body. As you breathe in and your very deeply domed diaphragm flattens and moves downwards to create space for your inhalation. Because it is wrapped up the inside of the lower ribs, which are themselves highly mobile, connected by costal cartilage rather than bony joints, the lower ribs are pushed out by the in-breath and the movement of the diaphragm. And at the same time as the diaphragm moves down into a fairly soft abdomen, the abdomen is just pushed out slightly as you breathe in. So we're trying to feel those two movements, and one may be more obvious than the other. As you breathe in, lower ribs moving out, abdomen moving out. And as you exhale, the reverse, lower ribs moving back inwards, abdomen moving back inwards. And even at this very initial stage one of the three-part breath, we're trying to use some breathing muscles, a little bit of effort on the inhale, but a feeling that there's no effort on the exhale. And you just let your exhale exit the body at its own pace. And as it exits the body, there's a feeling of release. then the next stage is the one that sometimes eludes some people, but if we deliberately extend the length of the inhale, what we're going to do is watch very closely in our own bodies the sideways outward movement of the lower ribs, and notice the point where that movement ceases and is overtaken by a lifting sensation higher up, right in the mid-chest. And that is the sensation in your body of the intercostal muscles working with the diaphragm, almost taking over from the diaphragm, which is the main breathing muscle, and giving you this very much deeper inhale. So as you breathe in, notice the expansion of the lower ribs. And as you continue to breathe in, notice how suddenly you feel something else, this lifting, this expansion. That's your external intercostals lifting the rib cage. So now it's an upward and outward movement, just outward in the lower ribs and upward and outward in the upper ribs. And when we add in this thoracic part, part 2 of the breath, we are really feeling a lot of additional capacity, and we're moving towards maybe 80% of our comfortable lung capacity. So I'm just going to show you the hand movement for those who want to. If you are finding it hard to feel that in your body, then you have your hands like this, palms facing towards each other. And as you breathe in, move the hands apart. And as you continue to breathe in, lift the hands to represent the lifting of the rib cage. And then at the end of the inhale, we're going to turn the hands and point the fingers up towards the ceiling. And this indicates the third stage and final stage of the 3-part breath, which if you're not using the hands, you'll feel in your body. If you extend that inhale to its comfortable maximum, the final part, the top of the lungs, you'll just feel a little bit of lift in the very topmost ribs and the collarbones, as some neck muscles give you the last 10 to 20% of your breath capacity. So doing 2 or 3 breaths like that, and either feeling the 3 sensations, the widening of the lower ribs, the lifting of the mid ribs, the raising of the collarbones as you breathe in, and just letting everything relax down. Or you could do the hand movement, and that might be something that you will enjoy and just helps you to connect to this very deep, slow breath. And as you do your last couple of these deep breaths, just notice how successful you're being in simply letting the exhale go, really inviting that long, smooth exhale that is longer than the inhale, but is so effortless in its quality. And it's that effortlessness that really helps to promote the parasympathetic, the relaxation response that we're looking for. And then at the end of the next exhale, just keep the eyes closed, release the breath from that particular practice, and just notice how you're feeling. Notice the rapid way in which breath work can transform how we feel emotionally, mentally, and also perhaps the level of tension that we're holding in the body. And then blink open your eyes. And if you're going to work on the mat, then come down to lying on the mat with your knees bent. And if you're staying in a chair, just remain in the chair for a moment. And the first thing we're going to do for those lying on the mat is draw the knees in over the chest in the way that we often start our practice, and just take a little gentle rock from side to side. And if you're sitting in a chair, you're going to place the hands on the thighs and you're going to gently circle the upper body around the pelvis. For those on the mat with the knees in, you can either hold around the shins or the back of the thigh if you have any knee problems, or you could use a belt around the front of the legs there. And as we rock from side to side as slowly as possible, we're going to continue to maintain our soft, deep breathing with the long exhale. And you can begin to roll the back of the head, roll the head from side to side, the opposite way to the legs. But only doing that if you've got the head in a position where the chin isn't higher than the forehead. So often you'll need a blanket or a yoga block under the back of the head to be able to rotate the neck in a neutral position. And then the next time you come to center, take a breath in, and as you do the long exhale, drawing the thighs in towards the chest, remember holding the shins or the thighs. As you breathe in, let the thighs move away slightly, and exhale, draw the thighs in. And just noticing the release and the space that you are creating in your lower back as you do this practice. And then on the next inhale, if you're on the mat, you're going to take the left leg down and just work a couple of breaths, drawing the right thigh in during the long exhale. And if you're in a chair, this practice works in exactly the same way, holding the shin or the back of the thigh and drawing the thigh in towards the body a little bit during your out breath. If you're used to working this pose with the legs straight and it's safe for you to do so and you're lying on the mat, then feel free to slide the left leg away, push the heel away, pull the toes back, just enjoy that initial lengthening through the left leg. And that means as you draw in the right thigh during your long exhale, you're going to get a little bit more opening through the groins, through the hip, and there's going to be a little bit more stretch through the hip flexor on this left hand side. And then on the next inhale, whether you're in the chair or on the mat, we're going to change sides. So the left thigh is coming in. Start with the right leg in semi-supine, knees bent. Just do a couple there. Notice how that feels. Breathing in, releasing the thigh away. Long exhale, drawing the left thigh in. And if you work with a straight leg, on the other side, slide the right leg straight, push the heel away, pull the toes back, and do a couple there to have that slightly stronger opening of the hips and the hip flexor. And on the next inhale, as you release the thigh away, take the foot to the floor, slide both legs straight if you're on the mat, give the legs a little bounce up and down, and then bring both knees in over the chest and take one hand on each knee. And if you're in a chair, you're going to do one leg at a time. So we are hip circling into the hips by holding the knees, and if you're lying on the mat you can do both knees at the same time. I'm sure this practice is familiar to you. It's a hip opener that I find hard to leave out of any yoga class I teach. You've got the hips out of gravity, you've got a real opportunity here to find your maximum range of pain-free motion. If you're working with hip replacement or arthritis or any joint condition here, just stick with the golden rule of always only doing a pain-free range of motion. You don't want to suffer, and if you go beyond that little bit of sense of working into pain, everything's going to tighten up anyway. So if you're still working with that, if you're in a chair, make sure you've swapped to the other leg, and if you're lying on the mat, maybe taking the circles a couple of times around in the other direction. Very good. And then release the feet down, so they're in semi-supine if you're on the mat, feet flat on the floor if you're in the chair, and if the feet are not flat on the floor, maybe placing a yoga block under them. We can do a little bit of shoulder releasing now. So if you're lying on the mat with the feet in semi-supine, you're going to keep the shoulders really soft, the elbows bent, and as you breathe in, take the arms up into the air, and if your shoulders are already quite released, they might go a long way overhead, even reaching the floor behind you, and exhaling, bringing the hands back beside the body. In the chair it looks exactly the same, but this is shoulder release rather than any kind of stretch, so please keep the breath flowing, keep the shoulder joint really, really soft. We're doing quite a lot of rotation here into the shoulder joint. And then just one more of those. Release the hands down. If you're lying on the mat, just shrug the shoulders up and down, either both together or one and then the other, and it feels like you are wiping your feet with the shoulder blades at the back of the body there. If you're in a chair, it's a little easier to do. You can do a little bit of shoulder rotation, lifting and dropping the shoulders. So just letting those shoulders feel like they've released very well. If you're lying on the mat now and it's safe for you to do so, just stretch the legs straight. And we're going to do a practice now where the inhale, we're going to engage as many muscles as we can into quite an active stretch, but again pain-free. And on the exhale, we're trying to soften the body as much as possible, so finding that contrast. And this links into sympathetic, parasympathetic, so by exaggerating the tension and exaggerating the release between two breaths, we can fire up that system's capacity to release unnecessary tension. So if you're lying on your back, legs are straight, but they could remain in semi-supine for any back problems, arms overhead, and just a really long stretch through the hands, through the arms, through the legs, spreading the toes, spreading the fingers on inhale, and as you exhale, bringing the arms back and going into a mini shavasana, mini relaxation pose for the whole long exhale. As soon as you breathe in, arms overhead, come back into that stretch. If we're working in a chair, we're just doing it really with the upper body, reaching up, spreading the fingers, stretching, and exhaling, releasing the hands down onto the thighs. And then the next time you go into the stretch position, you're going to hold that for 3 breaths. Now, there is going to be a lot of tension in the body. We're engaging as many skeletal muscles as we can, which might inhibit the fullness of your inhale a little bit. But holding that stretch, lengthening the body, feeling all those muscles working, noticing the tension that you're creating, but this time consciously and for a purpose. And when you get to the exhale of the 3rd breath, bring the arms back and allow the arms and the legs to completely soften, and we'll take 3 breaths in relaxation pose. And as you come into that pose, just notice how well you are able to really soften the body and release the body down. Okay, lovely, well done. So that practice also helps us stretch out the spine. So we're going to do some supine spinal twist now. So if you'd like to bend your knees and have the feet flat on the floor if you're lying on the mat, and in the chair just sitting nice and tall with the palms together in front of the heart. If you're lying on the mat and you've got enough room, just stretch the arms out at shoulder height, palms facing upwards. Keep the wrists no higher than shoulders, a little bit lower if you have any shoulder girdle issues, to keep the shoulders relaxed and down. Feet are going to be hip width apart to begin with. It's going to be up to you as we're going to move in and out of the twist dynamically. If you want a slightly stronger twist and you're used to doing it and it's safe for you, you can bring the feet together, or you could even bring the knees in over the chest. That is a very strong version of Jatara Parivriti. So it would be exhaling, knees to one side, rolling the head to the other. Breathing in, long inhale, and even longer exhale, knees to the other side, and rotating the head. And we're going to replicate that movement in a chair, if you're working in a chair. So as you exhale, if you were turning your shoulders to the right, you turn the head the opposite way to the left. And inhale, back to center, and exhale, shoulders to the other way, head the opposite way. Mobilizing the spine like this on the mat is preferable because there's no gravitational pressure on the discs, but it can be done safely upright in a chair, as long as you remember just to maintain that length of the spine and maintain that little bit of lift through the core of the body, through the center of the body. So just keep going with your breath once more to each side. And then if you're lying on your mat, next time you bring the head and the knees to center, draw the knees in, take a little rock from side to side to release the spine. And if you're working in a chair, you're coming back to center, hands on the thighs for support, and just bowing forward to come back to the midline of your spine. We've got a little bit of hamstring stretching to do now, where we're going to use the belt, whether you're in the chair or on the mat. And I mean, people have a very sedentary lifestyle anyway, but there is perhaps even more sitting around at the moment with all the isolation at home. So what I'd like you to do is take the belt around the right foot, and if you're on the mat, just take the sole of the foot up towards the ceiling, but keep a big bend in that right knee. Wrap the belt once around the hands so you're not having to grip quite so strongly with the fingers, and send tension up to the shoulders. And feel as if the other leg that's bent is flat on the floor. So this would look exactly the same if you were sitting in a chair. You've got the leg in front of you, the weight is supported by the belt. We're going to keep the head on the floor, we're going to keep the back of the pelvis on the floor. The bent knee position that we're in, the hamstring is relaxed. This is our inhale position. And as you begin to exhale, you're going to allow the leg to straighten to an appropriate amount for you. And as soon as you breathe in, soften the knee. So if you're quite flexible in your hamstrings already, that bend in the knee might only be very slight. And if you are tight in the hamstrings, you might need to bend the knee a significant amount to feel the muscle switching off from the stretch. So we only want to stretch this leg during the exhale. And there's some really good reasons for this, anatomy and physiology reasons that I don't have time to go into now. But we all know, don't we, from our own experience of yoga practice, that we get the deepest expressions of stretches during the exhale, and it is all linked into the parasympathetic response and the release phase of the breath. And then on your next exhale, you're going to hold the stretch for a few breaths. And again, if you're quite flexible, that leg will either come a little bit higher in the air if you're sitting in a chair, or a little bit closer in towards the body, but still keep the back of the pelvis on the mat, keep the head released onto the floor. So you're just isolating that stretch down the leg, and still continue to focus on the long exhale. So as you breathe in, feel as if you're just holding steady now, and as you do a long exhale, invite or explore that feeling of release, maybe that slight softening of the right hamstring during the long exhale phase of your breath. Well done. This one is actually a little bit harder if you're in a chair. The belt helps you support the weight, but there's quite a bit of weight there, so you don't need to hold that stretch for as long if you're in a chair. Okay, and then rather than moving straight onto the left side, if you could bend that right knee and take the foot down, just release the belt, rest it over the chest, and slide both legs straight, and notice the difference in sensation between the right leg and the left leg, and in particular the back of the right thigh compared with the left thigh. So many of you who are yoga teachers and regular practitioners will have really highly developed proprioception skills, body awareness skills, but even so, the more we can notice the subtle differences even between sides of the body, the more we can be embodied, and that feeling of greater embodiment is also associated with a feeling of enhanced grounding and steadiness and foundation. So we're coming back into bending the knees and taking the belt now around the left foot, whether you're on the mat or in the chair, and working in the same way. Wrap the belt around the hands, breathing in with the left knee bent now, and long exhale, moving into that stretch and lengthening the back of the left leg. Inhale, soften the left knee. Long exhale, release it. Often with practicing hamstring stretches or teaching hamstring stretches, the people that we are teaching who have quite a lot of chronic shortening in those muscles get into a war with the body in that one, and this is quite a good practice to really help them feel the difference between the relaxed muscle and the stretching muscle. And there's no point really going straight into a static stretch where the muscle is very, very tense, developing a lot of contraction to resist the stretch, maybe shaking, that will interrupt breathing as well. So backing out and using the breath in this way is a very intuitive and effective way. So we're coming into the static phase of the stretch on that left side now. Remember, if you're working in a chair, not to hold it for too long, because you are working harder than the people on the mat. Well done. And then on your next inhale, letting that left knee bend, releasing the belt. Either if you're in a chair, just taking the feet back down to neutral, or sliding the legs straight if you're on the mat. And again, checking in with the sensations between the right leg and the left leg. And if you feel like you need to draw the knees in, take a little rock from side to side to release that practice from your body, please do so. Otherwise, we're just going to continue with a little bit more stretching of the hamstring, but continue with our shoulder release in a cross crawl. So as you breathe in, you're going to bring the right knee in over the chest and take the left arm up into the air, and still breathing into your long inhale, stretching the right leg up, and taking the left arm overhead. The long exhale, everything is coming back to starting position, and inhaling, now it's the left leg coming in, bending the knee in over the chest, then straightening the leg. Exhale, bending the knee back in over the chest and lowering the leg. So no raising and lowering of straight legs, always coming in over the chest to straighten and take the stretch. That will work perfectly in a chair. Again, it's a little bit harder work on the quads to lift the leg in gravity, so feel free to do fewer cross crawls if you're working in a chair, and if the legs get tired, just do the arm movement there, inhale and exhale. So cross crawl earns its place in the class because it's working opposite sides of the body at the same time, as many of you will know that is an effective way of improving horizontal integration between the two hemispheres of the brain. And this is a practice that is often given to people who've suffered head injury or for other reasons have poor coordination skills. So we'll just do one more of those, finishing with the left leg and the right arm. And again, if you are on the mat, draw the knees in, take a little rock from side to side. Just got a couple more practices to do before we'll come off our backs, if you're wondering how long this phase is going to go on for. So the last one I want to do, in fact, on our backs, if you're on the mat, and this will work in the chair as well, is back in semi-supine, is rest the palms on the abdomen, and as you breathe in with your full inhale, you'll notice that the lumbar spine will tend to become very, very slightly more pronounced. And as you exhale, and if you can support the exhale by slightly drawing in these tummy muscles where your palm is resting, you'll feel the lower back flattening down towards the mat and stretching out. So this gives us a little bit of a subtle pelvic tilt with the breath. And it reminds us that when we are drawing in, what you're doing actually is drawing in transversus abdominis, your deepest of the four abdominal muscles. When you draw that in and press the lower back down towards the mat, the lower back is corseted, is supported much more fully. So if we can maintain that sensation of, at the end of the exhale, you're just feeling that the lower back is nice and flat on the floor, and then release the hands off the abdomen and see if you can continue to do a really nice quality inhale and long exhale while maintaining this feeling of the lower back being gently held in its lengthened position down onto the mat. And then we are going to lift the pelvis in a second, so if you have anything under the back of the head, just slide that out if you're working on the floor. If you're working on the chair, you're going to be taking the arms up into the air and lifting the chest, and that will be enough. You're going to keep the pelvis on the chair. And if you're working on the mat, you're going to take the arms up into the air, you're going to keep the lower back nice and long, you're going to press into the feet and just bring the hips a tiny bit into the air to begin with. And on the long exhale, roll the spine down so the back of the pelvis, the sacrum and the tailbone come down last of all, and the arms coming back beside the body. You don't have to do the arms if that's too much for you. You can keep the arms beside the body. We want to feel that we're floating the pelvis up on the inhale, and we're rolling the spine down on the exhale. But both of these movements are being supported subtly by the core of the body, so that as we go up, the tummy doesn't balloon outwards, and actually this lifting of the pelvis is strengthening the core muscle structure and inviting us to open the upper chest, the heart center, rather than lift the tummy and go into the lower back, which is designed to do this movement anyway. So we want to work the thoracic spine and not the lumbar spine. So for those of you who need a demonstration, if you're in a chair, this is what you're doing. The back bend is on the inhale. Doesn't have to involve raising the arms, but we're lifting the chest and finding that same position, and we're still trying to do that little bit of work through the deepest tummy muscles in that subtle supportive way. And then if you're still working, the next time you roll the spine down, draw the knees in, take a little rock from side to side. And then we're going to change position now. We're going to come onto all fours to do cat posture. It's really important that you pad the knees in the cat. If you haven't got a blanket or a cushion, as I was suggesting, then roll in the front of the mat. The knees are terribly badly designed for weight bearing, so even if you have no knee problems, I would say always pad the knees in cat. You can do the cat from sitting in a chair. That's absolutely fine. It's going to look like this. Breathing in, sliding the hands towards the hips, exhaling, sliding the hands towards the knees. The drawback is that you will be doing this spinal mobilization in gravity. So if you are working in a chair and you can stand behind the chair and hold the back of the chair, that would be even better. So breathing in for those on all fours, taking the spine into back bend, and we're going to do as little as possible with the neck and the lower back. We're going to take all our focus to the mid back. So breathing in, feel as if you're sinking the spine between the shoulder blades, and long exhale, taking the spine in the other direction, arching the back up. Long inhale, opening the thoracic spine. So my gaze from the mat-based cat is actually just to the front of the mat. I'm not trying to lift the head and look forwards. That's going to contain the movement in the neck. And I'm not releasing everything in my tummy as I do the back bend, so that the pelvis doesn't tilt too far and go too deeply into the lower back, if that makes sense. It's the thoracic spine, the half the back, 12 vertebrae, where all the ribs are jointed. That's the stiff part. That is the area we need to focus on mobilizing in the cat. If you need to raise the hands onto blocks, please do so if you have any wrist or shoulder issues, or just do fewer repetitions of cat. And I always have the hands one hand width in front of the shoulders to decrease the angle on the wrist joint. So round about now, or when you finish the next cat, we're going to come into a resting pose, and you'll just make this work for you. So if it's not possible to take the hips all the way back to the heels, rest the forehead down on the back of the hands, keep the hips in the air, make sure those knees are comfortable, you've got plenty of padding there, or take another position if that is uncomfortable for you. So we're going to do two sequences now. One is called the Earth Salutation, and that's done from kneeling, but if you have knee problems, I recommend doing this one in a chair. And then we're going to stand up and do a Sun Salutation, but it's the Yoga and Healthcare Alliance NHS Sun Salutation, so it's a very, very gentle version, and also can be done in the chair or standing. So the Earth Salutation, first of all, we come to kneeling, and you might want to take this opportunity just to tuck the toes under to stretch out the soles of the feet. That's quite nice, but if you've got any joint problems in the toes and that's uncomfortable, then anytime just untuck the toes, come back to your usual kneeling position. And many people will want to sit astride a yoga block, or I'm using a meditation cushion here to take the pressure off the knees and be really comfortable. It's really important that you're comfortable here. I'm going to demonstrate one round of the Earth Salutation. If if you haven't done this before, which you probably haven't unless you've done a workshop with me. So I'll just show you this. So from kneeling position, we breathe in and we come up to a high kneeling, and we take the hands into what's sometimes called cactus position. So elbows no higher than shoulders, palms forward, drawing the elbows back and lifting the heart. And then as we exhale, the hips are coming back down towards the heels, the hands to the mat, and we bow down to the earth, and your forehead may or may not reach the mat. Breathing in, tuck the toes and come into a cat head up position. And then breathing out, some of you are going to come into downward dog, and some of you are going to untuck the toes and come back into this position, which is going to give you a lot of the spinal lengthening qualities of downward dog. So I'll just show you that again. That was one position. Inhale, cat with the toes tucked under. Exhale, if you're coming into downward dog, we're doing it with the knees bent. We're lengthening the spine. Breathing in, taking the knees down, little cat position there. Exhale, untuck the toes, bow down. This is where you would match up with the people who didn't do the dog. And then everyone finishes the sequence by breathing in, coming up, and breathing out, bringing the hands together in prayer position. So I'm going to talk you through a couple of rounds of that. You may need to glance at the screen, but I would probably advise just having a go, and if it goes slightly wrong, it doesn't really matter as long as you are safe. So we're in kneeling or supported kneeling, or on a chair with the palms together, and we're breathing in. We're coming to high kneeling, we're opening the chest, releasing the shoulders. Exhaling, taking the hands down to the mat, bowing forward to the earth. Inhaling, coming up and tucking the toes, cat head up. And exhale, either untucking the toes and doing extended child, or exhaling the hips back and up into your downward dog. Take a breath here. Long inhale, and then long exhale, knees down and bow to the earth. Everybody breathing in and coming up into your back bend, and breathing out, returning to starting position. Once more with slightly less cueing. Breathing in, open the heart. Long exhale, bow down to the earth. Breathing in, rising up from the earth, tuck the toes. Breathing out, downward dog or extended child. Take an inhale in this pose. Long exhale, knees down and bow to the earth. Inhale, coming up, high kneeling. Exhale, palms together. Do one more of those in your own time without stressing at all about getting it exactly right. Just let your breath lead you and try to maintain that smooth inhale and lengthened exhale. And this time at the end of the last exhale, when you're back in your starting position, just keep the eyes closed for a moment. Notice how you feel. When that sequence becomes very familiar, it can turn quite rapidly into a very nice moving moving meditation in which you can add in lots of imagery about earth connection and root chakra and connection to the nature and the environment. I'm going to be really happy to share my lesson plan with you for anyone who wants it, so don't feel you need to make notes now. Okay, so for those who can, we're coming up to standing. If you've been working in a chair but you're able to stand and you would just like the chair next to you for support, feel free to do that. But equally, if you want to remain in the chair, then please also do that. Because once we're up to standing, we're just going to take a slightly wider than usual Tadasana mountain pose, just for extra stability, and just checking that you're absolutely on a nice non-slip mat. So I can't get the whole of me in, so you're going to see the top of my body and head only, and not my feet, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the feet in a minute. So we're just going to begin by doing some wrist rotations after that weight bearing work through the wrists and through the shoulders. And then if you can spread the palms and really spread the fingers, lengthen them away from the palms, and as you do that, feel how the palm itself is activated and the arches, the subtle arches of the palm are really working there. That's a good inhale position. And then long exhale, just make a nice soft fist, maybe with the thumbs inside to begin with. As you breathe in, stretch the hands again. As you breathe out, soft fist with the thumbs on the outside. All working within your pain-free range of motion if you've got any joint issues or wrist issues. And then let the arms hang, give the wrists and the fingers a little shake. And using the arms now as weights, we're just going to do a little bit of shoulder shrugging, breathing in, taking the shoulders forward and up, and breathing out, taking the shoulders back and down. Inhale and exhale. And then keeping the arms relaxed, as you breathe in, lift the toes. So I'm not going to show you that, but I'm staying on my heels, and as I lift the toes, I'm trying to spread the toes just like the way we spread the fingers. And as you exhale, relax the toes back down. Let's do that 2 more times. So inhaling, lifting the toes, spreading the toes. And in the same way, but in a slightly more exaggerated form now, you'll be feeling the arches of the feet really lifting and working as you lift the toes, and those arches settling back down as you exhale and release the toes down. So once more. It's really an essential practice for everybody to do to maintain muscle tone in the foot, maintain the health of the arches as your feet stiffen up as you get older. That's associated with a lot of loss of balance and the ability of the foot to negotiate uneven terrain. So this is a big favourite of mine. And then if you shift your weight forward slightly, so you're now taking a bit more weight into the toes and the front balls of the feet, and the heels feel nice and light. And then breathing in, lifting the heels slightly, and breathing out, lowering the heels. Remember, if you have any balance issues, be near a wall, be near a chair, keep yourself safe, and just moving up and down with the breath. If that's feeling okay, on the next inhale, we're going to sweep the arms out and up as we lift the heels. And as we exhale, draw the hands down through the midline of the body. And as you exhale, lift the toes. Release the hands. Inhale, relax the toes down, lift the heels, float the arms up. Exhale, lower the heels and lift the toes all through that long exhale. We're breathing up and down from the ground now, inhaling, drawing the breath up through the soles of the feet to the crown of the head, and long exhale, down through the midline, lift the toes. Last one, inhale, heels coming up. Exhale, heels down, toes lifting, and then relax the arms, relax the legs, maybe give their legs a little shake. That footwork also activates a lot of muscles in the shins as well, so there are other benefits. So we're going to come into our inclusive sun salutation, which can be equally done from the chair or standing. And I'm just going to show it to you, but a little bit quicker than we're going to be doing it. We're going to be doing it obviously with our breath. So just watch this for a second if you can. So it's that same position, very effective back bending position. And then my exhale position is to bend the knees and bring the hands onto the thigh, if I show you the side view, and take the spine down to about here, or the furthest you're going to go is spine horizontal to the floor. But if you notice, my back is still flat. There's no rounding like this at all. Back is completely flat. We're going to breathe in here and lift the spine, and you might actually hover the hands off the thighs there if you want to do more strengthening work in the back. And then there's a long exhale where you can go deeper into the forward bend by either straightening the legs, for those who need to keep the head level with the heart, high blood pressure, heart problems, anything else. Or if you're used to going into full Uttanasana, you can do that long exhale all the way down, take the hands to the mat. But when we come back up, we bring the hands back onto the thigh, make the back straight. So I don't really want to see anybody coming up with a round back. Not that I'm going to be able to see all of you. We're going to breathe in and come up with a nice flat back. This is going to be really safe for the spine. And exhale, hands together. And then there's a little bit more, but it's so easy, we'll do that together. So let's have a go. Feet hip width apart or a little bit wider. Palms together in front of the heart. And breathing in, open your heart, nice full breath. Long exhale, bend the knees, bring the hands onto the thighs. And bow forward with a straight spine, spine level with the floor. Inhale, arch away from the floor, activate your back. And now take a long exhale to either stretch the legs or fold completely forwards if you would like to do that. On the next inhale, bend the knees, make the back flat and power up with the quads, coming up into that back bend position. Exhale, bring the hands together in front of the heart. Continuing, inhale, take the hands up. This would be high enough. You can go right above the crown of the head if you want to. Palms are together. And then as you exhale, sway to the right. Inhale, come up to center. And exhale, bring the hands back to the heart. Long exhale. Inhale, hands traveling up again. Long exhale to the left. Inhale, hands coming up, and exhale, hands back in front of the heart. You can see how that is all going to work exactly the same in a chair. You're just folding over the thighs instead of taking the hands onto the mat. So let's go for a second round, breathing in. And breathing out, coming into the forward bend. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, flatten the back, come up with a flat back. And exhale, bring the palms together. Just pause there for a second. So when we teach this sun salutation to the NHS patients, we do it in the last 3 weeks of the 10-week course with a chime track in the background. I'm not sure how the sound will be for you. I've just got it playing quietly in the background here. So if you can hear that, I'm going to use the chime to cue you in. It's chiming every 6 seconds. If you can't hear it, it doesn't really matter. So we're going to start, we can do one more, we're going to start back at the beginning. Inhale. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lengthen the back. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, flatten the back, come up. Exhale, palms together. Inhale, take the hands up. Exhale, sway to your right. to center. Exhale, bring the hands to your heart. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, sway to the left. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands to heart. And this time releasing the hands down. I'd love to continue that with you for a few more rounds, but there isn't quite enough time. That chime track is available free. You may or may not have been able to hear that very well, but it does work beautifully at coordinating the breath and the movement and making that a very stilling experience. So our last posture before we do a wind down and relaxation and final breathing is a simple heron balance. So I'm very keen on inclusive one breath balances. If you need a wall or a chair, then take one hand on the wall. If you're not using a wall, then this is the arm movement. Inhale and exhale. You probably know this balance. We're keeping the shoulders really soft, the arms just moving with the breath. Feel like your arms are being breathed up and down, like the majestic flight of the heron. And then on the next inhale, just lifting the right heel by bending the knee, so keep the right toes on the floor, and exhale, take that heel down, and inhale, lift the left heel by bending the left knee. So we're just shifting weight from side to side and seeing how that feels to take most of our balance into one leg. So this is often enough for the chair yoga class I teach, but if you're confident with your balance, you can extend the leg to lifting off the mat, but we're still not going to bring the knee any higher than hip height. Can't really see my legs, but my legs are just coming up with the breath. And the beauty of teaching the balance like this is that even if someone has a wobble, they've got a fresh start on the next inhale. And there's nothing more frustrating than trying to hold a balance and having a bad day balancing and getting stressed about it and undoing all the good work you've been doing in your class. So when I am teaching my chair classes, anyone who walked into the room, I'm going to really strongly encourage them to hold the back of the chair with two hands or one hand as necessary, because those are the people who need the balance and to maintain their balancing skills even more than we do. So next time you lift the left leg, make that your last one, just come back to center, and then we're going to take a final resting pose, which is a really mild inversion. I'm going to show you the one that I do, which would normally be using a chair, but I'm just going to use the edge of my sofa by first angling the camera down so you can see. But I've got a blanket for the head. I've got the yoga block under the back of the pelvis, and the legs either rest on a chair or, as I'm doing here, on the sofa. So this is the alternative to a half or full shoulder stand. If you normally do a shoulder stand and you can do it safely and you want to do that or any other inversion, of course, please do that at your own risk. But I'm just teaching this very gentle one. For those in a chair who can't get down to the mat, we either just elevate the legs, put the feet up, something like that. So get yourself into a comfortable position. Make sure you're not straining the body, whichever position you've chosen. This is a a closing pose, a winding down pose. We're only going to take 5 breaths here, and then we're going to transition into shavasana, into relaxation. So if you've either had enough or you're missing this one out, you could come straight into relaxation whenever you're ready to. So if those of you still working, either legs in the air, or if you were doing any shoulder stand variations, then in your own time, coming down to a comfortable place to relax. So if you're working in a chair, really not a good idea to try to relax in the chair unless you've got a really supportive chair with large sides, so that in case you do drop off, you're not going to fall off. So coming down to the floor if you can. Any lower back issues, then rest in semi-supine. If you have the luxury of a bolster, you could rest the back of the knees over the bolster. For most people, it's beneficial to have something under the back of the head, so the chin is not higher than the forehead, so the back of the neck is neutral and long. That's something I'm always particularly interested in. And if some of you are going to want to do this as a seated practice, so you're just going to do it more as a meditation rather than a relaxation, and that is going to be possible with the cues that I am giving. So find yourself in a comfortable position, and at any time if discomfort arises, please just make an adjustment there. Allow the eyes to softly close, let the eyes rest back into the eye sockets. If you're feeling stressed or anxious and you don't want to close the eyes, if that causes too much activity in the mind, then keep the eyes open and have a soft gaze up towards the ceiling. Take a moment to notice exactly how you feel in your body right now. Maybe noticing any shifts in the amount of tension in your body. Maybe, hopefully, some enhanced feelings of well-being. And notice also the quality of your mind, whether that has slowed and steadied. And then release yourself from that little check-in and focus entirely on your breath. And we're going to continue with an easy fullness of in-breath and a relaxed, slow exhalation. And every breath in we take, we're going to imagine that we are breathing up from the ground. And every exhale we take, we're going to imagine breathing back down to the ground. So begin by noticing all the points of contact between the back of your body and the ground. Or if you're sitting up or lying on your side, notice those points of contact instead. And then focus on the whole of your right leg. And as you breathe in, imagine taking your breath up from the ground into the whole of the right leg. And long, soft exhale, breathing back down to the ground, allowing the right leg to relax. Once more into the right leg, inhale up from the ground. Long exhale back down to the ground. Move your awareness to the left leg. Inhale, breathing up from the ground. And exhale, imagining the whole of the left leg, releasing your breath back down to the ground. Inhale, left leg up from the ground. Exhale, back down to the ground. Inhale up from the ground into both legs, and exhale back down to the ground, and both legs are relaxed. Move your awareness to the pelvis, breathing up from the ground, filling the pelvis with breath and energy, and long exhale through the back of the pelvis back down to the ground. Inhale up from the ground into the pelvis. Exhale back down to the ground. Inhale into the lower back and the lower abdomen, breathing up from the ground and exhaling back down to the ground. Inhale, lower back and abdomen. Exhale, long exhale back down to the ground. Become aware of the whole of the mid-back, all of the back ribs and their connection to the ground if you're lying down, or the back of the chair, or simply sitting up. As you breathe in, draw breath up from the ground, fill the whole of the chest, and long exhale back down to the ground. Inhale up from the ground, the whole of the chest. Exhale back down to the ground. Be aware of the right shoulder, the right arm, the right hand. Inhale, breathing up from the ground into the right shoulder, right arm and hand. And exhale, long exhale, back down to the ground. And the right arm and shoulder are relaxed. Inhale up from the ground, right arm and shoulder. Exhale, back down to the ground. Awareness to the left shoulder, left arm, left hand. Inhale up from the ground. Exhale, long exhale, release the left arm, shoulder and hand down to the ground. Inhale up from the ground. Long exhale down to the ground. Be aware of both arms, both hands, both shoulders. Inhale up from the ground and exhale down to the ground. Release, relax the shoulders, the arms, the wrists, the hands. Awareness to the head and neck. Breathing up from the ground. Fill the neck and head with breath, with energy. And exhale back down to the ground. Inhale up from the ground. Long exhale back down to the ground. Release all tension in the face, the mind. Hold the whole of your body in your awareness, and breathing up from the ground, fill the whole of your body with breath. And long exhale, release the whole of your body down to the ground with a long exhale. And do that for 2 or 3 more breaths. And now let your breath return to its natural rhythm. And if you're lying on the mat, move the fingers, move the toes, and gently stretch into your arms and your legs in any way that feels good. And bend your knees and roll onto your side. And take a couple of breaths to come back up to a comfortable seated position, either on the mat or on the chair. Going to close with 5 final breaths, breathing up and down from the ground. One of the tools I use to teach breath is one of these little breathing balls from a toy shop or a novelty shop, or even sometimes in Wilko. So they can really give a visual representation to the smoothness of the inhale and the length of the exhale, and any other breathing practices you may be teaching or doing yourself. So breathing in, finding that comfortable fullness of breath right up to the top of the lungs, and long exhale down to the ground, eyes closed or downcast. Inhale up from the ground, filling the lungs, base, middle and top, in a continuous flow of energy and breath. And exhale, release that breath back down to the ground. And if you're still breathing, complete the breath you're on, and take a final check-in with how you feel in your body, your mind, your breath. And then bring the palms together, give the palms a little rub, and cup the hands over the eyes to feel the warmth of the palms. And as you're doing that, blink open the eyes behind the palms and allow yourself to spread the fingers and release the hands down. Thank you very much for coming today. We've ended the class with 91 people, which is astonishing. So thank you very much for coming to that.